the boy who was executed at 14. They executed a child in 10 minutes. It took 70 years to admit he was innocent. Imagine being just 14 years old, accused of a horrific crime, tried in a single day, and executed by the state. They strapped him in a chair too big for his tiny frame, placed a Bible under him so the electrodes could reach. He was 14 years old, 95 pounds, and innocent. This is the tragic, true story of George Stinney Jr., a young African-American boy whose life was taken by a deeply flawed system. What if I told you the state of South Carolina electrocuted a child based on his skin color? We don't just tell you what happened. We uncover why it was allowed to happen. George Junius Stinney Jr. was born on October 21st, 1929, in Alcolu, South Carolina, USA. He was an American citizen, but in the Jim Crow South, his rights as a citizen were nearly non-existent. The real question isn't what George did, it's what everyone else didn't do. In a sleepy town in 1944, Alcolu, South Carolina, railroad tracks cut the town in half. Black and white, two Americas. In 1944, George was arrested for the murder of two young white girls, 11-year-old Betty June Binnicker and 7-year-old Mary Emma Thames. The town was shocked, but what followed was even more chilling. The only witness? A vague memory. The only suspect? A boy who had spoken to them the day before, George Stinney. There was no physical evidence, no witnesses, just the word of a 14-year-old black boy, interrogated alone, without a lawyer, without his parents. No lawyer, no parents, just George, and white officers demanding a confession. And within just a few hours, police claimed he confessed. George wasn't tried, he was processed, like data, like evidence, like an inconvenience to be deleted. It wasn't an interrogation, it was extraction from a terrified child, a trial lasting barely 2 hours, an all-white jury, no defense witnesses, no cross-examinations. Who was George Stinney Jr.? What led to his wrongful conviction? Why did it take 70 years to clear his name? And what does his story tell us about justice today? His defense attorney called no witnesses. The all-white jury deliberated for just 10 minutes before sentencing him to death by electrocution. He was so small. He had to sit on a Bible in the electric chair. His mask fell off during the execution. George Stinney Jr. became the youngest person executed in the U.S. in the 20th century. Strapped him down. He bit his lip. They say it bled. But George's story did not end in 1944, and 2014, 70 years later, a South Carolina judge vacated his conviction. The court declared that George had not received a fair trial. Too late to save his life, but not too late to restore his name. Years later, a judge declared George innocent. But this isn't justice. This is an apology made too late. George Stinney Jr. was an American, a child of this nation, failed by its justice system. His story is a haunting reminder of how quickly justice can be replaced by prejudice. But it's also a call to remember, to fight for fairness, to never forget those who were silenced, and to say his name, George Stinney Jr. George Stinney was the prototype, the first ghost in a machine that still runs today. He loved drawing. He wanted to be a preacher. His sister said he was scared of the dark, and he died, alone, in a room filled with lights. He was a child. They killed my brother for nothing. George wasn't executed because of evidence. He was executed because he was black, poor, and alone. And in that silence, we were all guilty. You've heard this story. Now you can't unhear it. The question is, what will you do with it? Injustice, anywhere, is a threat to justice everywhere. Martin Luther King, Jr. The tragedy of George Stinney Jr. doesn't just live in dusty court documents or black and white headlines. It lives in the pain of his family, who never got to hug him goodbye. It lives in the fear of every child of color who wonders if the system meant to protect them might one day turn against them. George didn't just die because of a flawed trial. He died because of a world that saw his skin color as a threat, not his youth as a shield. In that mugshot, you don't see a killer. You see a kid, a scared, skinny boy, looking into a camera that marked him guilty before the law ever did. No child should be remembered this way, but George's name has not been forgotten. His case helped ignite modern discussions about juvenile justice, racial bias, and the death penalty. He has become a symbol, not of guilt, but of grace denied and justice delayed. Across America, George's story is now taught in classrooms. His legacy lives in books, songs, documentaries, even laws designed to protect the rights of children. In courtrooms, his life was short, but it sparked a ripple that still touches lives today. So what do we do with the story of George Stinney Jr.? We honor it, we learn from it, we teach it, so that another child is never silenced by injustice. Let George's story remind us of what justice should be: truth, fairness, humanity, and above all, compassion. George Stinney Jr. was not just a victim of injustice. He was a child. He could have been your brother, your son, your classmate. He liked riding his bicycle. He liked playing with his sisters. He had dreams we'll never know, but the world didn't give him time to dream. His case may have happened in 1944, in a small segregated town in South Carolina, but injustice like his still echoes today, in courtrooms, in classrooms, on sidewalks. Reminds us, justice is not just about punishment. It's about protection. And if the system cannot protect its children, especially its most vulnerable, then it has failed. It's easy to look back and say, that was then. Things are different now. But are they? We still see young people judged more harshly because of the color of their skin. We still see lives discarded because of where someone was born, how much money they have, or how they're perceived. George's story asks us, what are we doing today to make sure this never happens again? So let this not be the end of George Stinney Jr.'s story. Let this be the beginning of your role in it. Speak up when you see injustice. Vote for leaders who defend civil rights. Learn, teach, question, share this story, so the next generation never forgets, because a society is judged not by how it treats its powerful, but by how it protects its children. Subscribe to keep truth alive. Comment with your thoughts. Share to be a voice for the voiceless.